The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the woman was led in quietly handcuffed. And without expression her eyes didn't flinch as spectators leaned in murmuring, with a mixture of curiosity and cruelty. She wore a plain blazer and jeans, her dark hair tied back in a non-nonsense bun. There was no uniform, no insignia, and no clue to the storm of service and sacrifice behind her steely silence. The bailiff didn't know who she was, neither did the judge, but they all assumed she looked ordinary, maybe too composed, maybe too tough. Some even whispered about her criminal record, though no one really knew the charge. They just saw a woman alone, restrained like a threat, and they judged. But what they didn't know, what no one in that courtroom could have guessed, was that just 6 months earlier she had pulled 5 men out of a live firefight in the dead of night, that she had completed more classified missions than half the brass sitting at the prosecution table, that her kill count saved thousands and her silence protected millions. What they didn't know was that she was a Navy SEAL, not just any SEAL, a sniper so legendary her name was etched into whispered briefings in war zones too dangerous to name, and she was sitting there with shackles on her wrists, treated like a criminal. And then the door opened. Before we go deeper into that moment, let me welcome you to Swift Tale, where we uncover true stories that shake the soul and shine light on the quiet warriors of the world. If you're visiting for the first time, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. It means the world, and it helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now here's a question for you. What would you do if you saw someone being judged and you were the only one who knew the truth about them? That's the story we're about to tell, because the moment that Admiral walked through those courtroom doors, everything stopped. The whispers, the mockery, even the judge froze. What he revealed about the woman in cuffs didn't just silence the room, it changed everything. This isn't just a courtroom story, it's a lesson in prejudice. It's a tribute to unseen heroes, and it's a reminder that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sits quietly waiting for the world to catch up. So buckle in, because the woman they laughed at was about to remind them and all of us what real power looks like, and she didn't need to raise her voice to do it before. She was the silent woman in shackles. She was someone the world never saw coming. Her name was Evelyn Chase, or at least that's the name she gave most who served with her never knew her first name, only the code name Ghost Viper, a title earned, not given, a name whispered in the shadows of foreign deserts and dense jungle missions, never echoed in the headlines. Evelyn didn't grow up around uniforms. She didn't come from a long line of decorated officers or hail from a military-based childhood. She was born in Detroit, raised in a struggling household where survival was the only training. Her father disappeared before she turned 3. Her mother worked 3 jobs just to afford a single room with heat. From a young age, Evelyn learned how to keep her head down and her fists up. At 16, she witnessed a robbery at a gas station and disarmed the attacker before police arrived. At 18, she enlisted in the Navy without telling anyone. By 19, she tested into one of the most elite SEAL training programs ever attempted. The instructors laughed at first, a woman joining this class, but Evelyn wasn't there to ask for permission. She didn't just pass, she shattered records. Most recruits collapsed during Hell Week. Evelyn broke her own toe and still carried a teammate on her back through a 12-mile course. Her spotter called her unbreakable. Her commander called her the most dangerous thing I've ever seen, and she barely speaks. She didn't talk much. She didn't need to. Her rifle did the speaking. They deployed her to regions so volatile that maps only showed shadows. Evelyn would lay still for 17 hours in 100 degrees heat to make a single shot. She saved ambassadors. She disrupted arms deals. She eliminated threats who didn't even know they were being watched. But it wasn't just her kill count that made her a legend. It was her restraint. One night, In the mountains outside Kandahar, Evelyn spotted a child carrying what looked like a weapon into a guarded compound. Her orders were clear: take the shot, but Evelyn hesitated. Her gut told her something didn't add up. She radioed for a delay and maneuvered closer. The weapon was a flashlight taped to a stick. The boy was lost without her instinct. Without her refusal to blindly obey, 5 civilians would have been lost. That was Evelyn Chase, a sniper who saw more than targets, a soldier who questioned everything, including orders that didn't sit right with her conscience, and in a world of war that made her powerful and dangerous. So why was someone like her in court? It all started with Operation Ember Wakeek, a black ops mission so classified even the vice president didn't get a full report. Evelyn was embedded with a joint strike force in Eastern Europe, tracking a corrupt intelligence broker selling U.S. secrets to enemy forces. The mission was compromise. Someone inside the system tipped off the target. A firefight erupted. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, and Evelyn made a split-second decision to shoot the broker through a stained glass church window before he disappeared into a crowd. The bullets saved lives, but the fallout, the military needed a scapegoat. Officially, they said her target was unarmed, that she acted without proper clearance. Evelyn was recalled, investigated quietly, then discharged under disputed conduct. No medals, no press, just silence, and she didn't fight it. She vanished, taking the burden with her, not out of guilt but out of loyalty to a system she still believed in, until one morning 2 years later the knock came. It wasn't military brass, it was civilian court officers. They had a warrant: charges excessive use of force, manslaughter, and obstruction. Someone powerful wanted her gone, and so, for the first time in her life, Evelyn Chase didn't deploy into battle. She walked into court. No one in the courtroom that day knew her story, not the judge, not the jury, not the prosecution, but that was about to change. And the woman they tried to erase was about to become unforgettable. The courtroom was buzzing long before Evelyn arrived. Cameras weren't allowed, but that didn't stop the seats from filling up with whispers and speculation to most in the room. This was just another high-profile trial, another name no one recognized being dragged through the system. No one knew that sitting behind that bland oak defense table would be one of the most lethal snipers in SEAL history. She walked in without security detail, without a lawyer by her side yet, dressed in charcoal gray slacks, a crisp black button-up shirt, and combat boots. No medals, no fanfare, just precision in every step. Calculated, silent. The bailiff called out her name, Evelyn Chase, and a few heads turned. Some whispered, "Is that the soldier?" Another scoffed, "She doesn't look like much." The judge didn't even glance up as she entered. The prosecutor leaned in to whisper something smug to his assistant. They had no idea the room was cold, not just in temperature but in tone, the kind of room where judgments had already been made before evidence was even presented. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Chase, we have reason to believe you are a danger to others, and a flight risk. Bail is denied." There was a shuffle. The bailiff moved toward her with a pair of handcuffs. She didn't move, she just raised her hands slowly with the same methodical control she once used while assembling a sniper rifle in the pitch black. Click, click, the metallic clink of the cuffs echoed through the room. Someone laughed, someone else took a photo despite the ban, and someone said under their breath, "Guess she wasn't so tough after all." The prosecution smiled, and Evelyn Chase said nothing, but she didn't have to, because just then the courtroom door swung open, not gently, not politely, but with purpose. A man entered, silver-haired, uniform, crisp and immaculate, a row of ribbons and medals across his chest. His steps were slow, but sure. He didn't look around for direction. He didn't ask for permission. He commanded the room by walking into it. It was Admiral J. Cole Rutherford, retired commander of Joint Special Operations, a Living legend, a man whose face had graced Pentagon walls and whose decisions had shaped the very course of war. He walked straight to the bench. Everyone stared, even the judge stood. Startled. "Your Honor," the Admiral said, voice steady, "I respectfully request to speak before these proceedings continue. This trial is a mistake, and I intend to prove it." The judge blinked. "This is highly irregular. She was under my command," the Admiral continued. "And if she's on trial, then I should be too." Silence. Evelyn didn't look at him. She kept her gaze fixed forward, but the cuffs tightened slightly against her skin, her only movement. Admiral Rutherford turned to the courtroom, his voice rising just enough. "You think you know this woman? You don't even know her. Shadow, I watched her risk her life for people who didn't know her name. I watched her hold position for 36 hours straight in the hills of Al-Hafar to protect a diplomat who never even thanked her. I watched her carry the body of her team leader out of a burning compound just so his family wouldn't have to bury an empty box." He pointed to the prosecution table. "You sit there with files and headlines. I sit here with memories burned into my mind of this woman saving lives over and over." He turned to the judge again. "And you cuffed her?" The judge fumbled with papers. "We had reason to believe." "What reason?" the Admiral asked. "Because she completed a mission no one else had the courage to touch, because someone higher up needed a fall person, and she refused to speak out of turn." Then his voice dropped to a low, lethal calm. "You don't chain lions. You salute them." Evelyn finally looked up. Her eyes met his, the first flicker of emotion, a spark of familiarity, respect, and something deeper, and then she nodded. The Admiral stepped back. The courtroom was frozen. Everyone who had laughed now looked ashamed. Everyone who had scoffed now fell silent, and then the judge said something no one expected. "Remove her cuffs." The bafe hesitated. "I said remove the..." Click, click. Her wrists were free. She didn't rub them. She didn't react. She just stood, and for the first time that day, everyone in the room stood with her. Because now they knew who they were looking at. Now they understood what she carried, and for the first time in their lives they had seen what a real warrior looked like, not on a battlefield, but in silence, in shackles, and still standing tall. D.S. Admiral Rutherford stood before the stunned courtroom. The silence was heavy, almost sacred. No one dared to shift in their seat. Even the judge sat straight, her eyes flicking from the Admiral's chest full of ribbons to the now free woman who had once stood in chains. He turned slowly toward Evelyn, then spoke not to the court, but to her. "I told them," he said, "that if they ever tried to put you in a cage, I'd be there." Before the lock clicked shut, Evelyn said nothing but the faintest motion of her jaw, the tight swallow, the eyes burning with quiet memory, said everything there was history between them, not romance, not politics, something older, something forged in fire and silence, and the kind of loyalty that doesn't have a uniform. The judge cleared his throat. "Admiral Rutherford, if you wish to give a formal testimony." "I do," he interrupted firmly, "but not the kind you're expecting." He faced the courtroom again, his voice carried not like a shout, but like thunder rolling in the distance, steady, rising, inevitable. "This woman saved my life twice. The first time she pulled me from a collapsed compound in Afghanistan after an ambush left us surrounded-eyed, lost consciousness from blood loss. She dragged me half a mile with a dislocated shoulder. I woke up in a med tent, and she was already gone, back out on patrol." He paused. The second time was harder to measure, but more permanent. He pulled a folder from his coat. "What you're looking at is the classified debrief of Operation Ember Wakeek. It was a clean kill. I authorized it. She carried it out, and she was punished for it because someone powerful needed to clean up their political mess." He opened the file slowly. "Let me read you the lines that were redacted from the public report." For the next several minutes, the courtroom listened, stunned, as the Admiral detailed The mission, the identity of the broker. Evelyn eliminated the secondary targets that were spared due to her precision, and the lives that were saved because she acted outside the lines but within. Moral clarity, she didn't fail her orders. He concluded she rose above them, and instead of being honored, she was. Discarded whispers began to ripple through the courtroom, hushed phrases, like they covered it up and that wasn't in the report. The prosecutor stood up, face flushed, voice shaking. This isn't protocol, this is hearsay. The Admiral slowly turned his full gaze on the man. Son, I wrote the protocol.
Dead.
Silence. Then Evelyn finally stood tall, straight, her voice the first sound from her all day. I didn't come here to clear my name, she said. I came here because I won't let anyone else take the fall for the truth. She walked toward the judge and placed something on the bench. A flash drive that's everything, not the sanitized reports, not the PR spin, the truth. The judge didn't touch it, he just stared at her, stunned. And then from the back of the courtroom a voice rose, timid. At first she saved my son, Inkbal. A woman stood. She saved my sister, said another and another and another. It was as if the world had been waiting for permission to speak the truth. One by one, people rose, not officials, not officers, civilians, survivors, family members, people Evelyn had rescued, defended, and protected quietly, without thanks. The courtroom transformed. It wasn't a trial anymore, it was a reckoning, and at the center of it all stood a woman who never asked to be a hero, just to be left alone. The judge's voice, when it came, was softer now, human. All charges are hereby dismissed. This case is closed. Pos Miss Chase, he stood. Thank you for your service. I'm sorry, she nodded once, then turned to walk out. No smile, no triumph, just the same silent grace she carried through deserts, storms, and betrayals. Admiral Rutherford joined her, and as they exited the courtroom, the same doors that once opened with judgment now swung wide with respect. The sun had begun to set as Evelyn Chase walked down the courthouse steps, free, but not changed. She didn't look back, she never did. That courtroom had seen her in chains, but it hadn't broken her, it hadn't even touched her, because Evelyn didn't need to be unshackled by metal. She had long since unshackled herself from the weight of public opinion, from the need for validation, from the lies whispered behind closed doors. Outside, a crowd had gathered, not to jeer, not to mock, but to watch, silent, respectful. Some held signs, some saluted, most just stood. The Admiral walked beside her, but said nothing. He knew the value of silence when it was earned. He knew that sometimes presence meant more than words. Reporters rushed forward, but Evelyn didn't speak. She offered no quote, no dramatic headline, because for people like her the mission is never about glory, it's about service. It's about truth, and it's about leaving without needing applause. So what can we learn from a woman like Evelyn Chase? We live in a world where assumptions fly faster than facts, where headlines replace history, where even a warrior, someone who has bled for her country, can be shackled for the sake of politics or ignorance. But Evelyn reminded us of something crucial. True strength doesn't scream, it endures. It shows up when no one's watching. It saves lives without asking for names, and it walks away without waiting for a medal. Her story matters not because she was extraordinary, but because she never needed to prove it. She was the mission. She is the legacy. So now it's your turn. Push pin if Evelyn's story moved you. Like this video. Push pin if you believe we should honor those who serve in silence. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Push pin. And if you're new to Swift Tale, subscribe for more powerful real-life stories that restore faith in the human spirit. Leave a comment below. What would you have done if you were in that courtroom? Would you have judged her or waited to learn her truth? Because sometimes the quietest person in the room has the loudest story to tell, and here at Swift Tale we'll keep telling.